And here today to help us understand the climate, the people, and the craft that make Temecula what it is, we're here with one of Temecula's leading winemakers, Joe Wiens. Thank you for having us here today.
Thank you for having me.
From your perspective, what makes Temecula what it is?
I think our climate is surprisingly well suited for winemaking. You know, oftentimes people think we're kind of in this warm desert area, but we had some great researchers from UC Davis come down and found that this little spot in particular is really well suited for winemaking. We're close enough to the coast. We've got a great marine influence that comes in every day that cools the valley down. So really fun spot to make wine here in California.
So tell us a bit about Wiens Cellars.
We started actually in 01 up in Lodi. Just my dad and I. He's our founding winemaker and vineyard manager. Grew up in kind of a gardening horticulture family. Had a small winery in Lodi and kind of realized pretty early on that you know, if we wanted to be where the people were, this was the place to be. So the rest of the family all lived down here in Riverside County, and you know, my dad came down, this is about in 03, and realized that this is a pretty prime area for making quality wine. We moved the winery down, opened here in 05. So we've been here 20 years now making wine in Temecula Valley and love it down here.
That's awesome. Now, I mean, being down here in Southern California, more often you hear of Southern Californians going north, and you certainly hear of Lodi as a really established grape region. So, I mean, that's really a unique aspect of your story to hear of a Central Californian from a grape growing area coming down here to Temecula. Some might even think of that as a bit of a gamble. Like, what was it that appealed to you and your dad?
You know, really it's just the proximity to pretty robust population bases. Like I said, we knew we could make high quality wine down here. You know, a busy day for us in Lodi was 12 people. And, you know, now a busy day for us is 700 or 800 people. So it was
Wow.
It was a pretty smart move. Being from Northern California, I always thought that's where my heart was, and being down here for 20 years, I don't think I'll ever leave. So it's a pretty cool place to be.
If you'll pardon the farm pun, it kind of grows on you.
Yeah.
In terms of what we see around us here today, how many people are on the Wiens Cellars team here?
We have about 60 employees total. We've got probably half a dozen or so vineyard workers. We employ our vineyard team year-round. When we moved down here, you know, we were first and foremost farmers and wanted to have that control over our vineyards and what we produce. So full-time vineyard crew. We've got about 5 people in our winemaking team, and then a great front of house staff as well.
How many vines do you have here on the property?
We farm about 100 acres total, maybe a little less now, maybe about 90 acres total. And on the estate, we've got about 7 or 8 acres planted. But like I said, you know, we kind of established ourselves in the valley. We found some kind of, on the far reaches of our AVA or our growing area, we found some really high quality vineyard spots, namely up in La Crusta, a beautiful site for growing grapes. And so, you know, we're farmers, so we manage our vineyards and bring the best quality fruit in that we can.
That's awesome. In terms of the experience that visitors here should expect to receive, what sorts of wines might they expect to be representative of Wiens Cellars?
So my dad was, you know, big reds wine drinker, and that's kind of how we got our name here in the valley, farming a lot of Cab Sauv and Syrah, Petit Syrah. And so that's kind of how we got our name in the valley. Our winemaker and myself kind of took the reins over the years. We kind of dialed in the white wine program as well. Obviously, we've got warm summer days out here, and that calls for a nice crisp Sauvignon Blanc. But kind of one cool thing about Temecula Valley is we're not necessarily pigeonholed into one variety. You know, you think of some Northern California regions where they just focus on one or maybe 2 varieties. And the cool thing about Temecula is we've got a lot of different kind of microclimates, and so we can focus on a lot of really fun varieties. We actually farm 32 different varieties here at Wiens Cellars. So
wow.
It keeps things interesting for us winemakers, you know, working with all these different varieties and coming up with some pretty fun blends as well. So
that's awesome. So the visitor can sort of pick their adventure.
Yeah, we like to have something for everybody here. So
be that Spanish or Italian or Southern French.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we've got it all. So.
So you were telling us earlier, Temecula is one of California's more diverse wine regions in terms of the varieties and where they all come from. It's really quite an amazing climate for that.
So if you think of Temecula Valley as a bowl, kind of the edges of the bowl is where we found the really nice quality growing sites. And so that's where we've kind of invested a lot of our vineyards.
And so you said it's about 10 acres here, right?
Yeah.
How many vines are there roughly on the 10 acres here on the estate?
We've got about 8,000 vines planted. We do about 6 by 6 row spacing on average for our vineyard here.
Okay. These are trained in a French training style, right? Most people, I think, would, if they were looking at this is what they would recognize a grapevine would look like, right? Maybe.
Yeah, this would be called a bilateral cordon. So basically the trunk will grow and then we'll train what will become the cordon onto this catch wire. The spurs will come off of here, and that's where the fruit will come off of. These vines were just planted this year. They're obviously taking really well, and so we're just kind of getting them established, getting that cordon established this year. Hopefully next year we can get a little bit of fruit.
What was here before when you decided to replant here in Cab Franc?
We had about 40 to 50-year-old Chardonnay vines. Production was slowing down on them. As the vines get older, sometimes they get a little more disease prone, and they just weren't producing as well for us anymore. Like I said, we're kind of known for full-bodied reds, so Cab Franc was an easy choice for us to work with.
Absolutely.
And happy to have some estate Cab Franc. We also, if I can geek out a little bit, we switched the row orientation. So
okay.
It used to be kind of more of a north-south. We switched to east-west. The main reason for that is we've got this great coastal wind that comes in every day. And if we can kind of orient the vineyard to take advantage of that wind flow, it keeps the mildew pressure down, it keeps the vines nice and aerated. So we found that this orientation works a lot better for us.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you have more than Cab Franc here on the property. I think you were telling us there are varieties on this vineyard that are from Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, and even Greece, maybe.
Yeah, we do have Montepulciano planted on the estate as well. We've got a little bit of Petit Verdot, some Syrah planted on the estate. And then with our outlying vineyards up in La Cresta, we've got anything from Albarino to Petit Verdot, Barbera, Dolcetto, some really fun Italian varieties that we're working with. Aglianico is another kind of fun one. So we found that those kind of Mediterranean climates really take hold well here and perform really nicely.
Is it the soil, the heat, the climate? I mean, you mentioned that maybe you're looking for more acidity in your wines.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Italian varieties retain acidity, and so that's good for us in our climate. We're not, I wouldn't say we're a hot climate, but we are a warm climate. So, kind of leaning into old world areas that grow similarly to Temecula is, I feel like a smart move.
Certainly.
It just makes it easier for us as winemakers to get fruit in that kind of does the work for us,
For sure. Now, so maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the development of Temecula as a wine growing region and as an AVA. You mentioned that UC Davis was involved in the birth of Temecula as we know it today.
Yeah, I think it was in the 60s. Some representatives from UC Davis came down and kind of found this valley to be really suitable for growing grapes. And mid-70s or so, the first couple wineries opened here in the valley, and just kind of slowly snowballed into what it is today. But yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty robust growing region now for 50 years.
And wines that have been produced here have been recognized in national and international competitions, right?
Yeah. I mean, we send quite a few of our wines off to competitions every year. We win golds and double golds on at least a dozen or so wines every vintage. We've got wineries in the valley that win California State Winery of the Year with the amount of different medal-winning wines that we produce in the valley.
That happened just this year, didn't it?
Yeah. Europa got recognized. So, and I think a lot of that is a testament to the fact that we don't lean into necessarily one variety in particular, because we can focus on a breadth of different varieties and showcase what we can produce here at competitions. tends to do pretty well for us. The nice thing about grapevines is every 20, 30 years you can maybe think about replanting, and that gives you kind of a fresh slate to think about what varieties you want to plant in the future.
Vineyards can really vary in size as well. I mean, I think people think of sort of larger farms in different areas, but Temecula really isn't structured that way. A lot of these are smaller family enterprises.
Yeah, so it is, it is kind of more small farms, small growers. I think the biggest vineyard here in the valley is maybe 30 or 40 acres.
Oh, wow.
So, we work with vineyards as small as 1 acre at Wiens.
Maybe you could tell us a bit about what was here before UC Davis came and identified this as a potentially good wine producing location.
Yeah, there was a good amount of citrus. There still is a good amount of citrus. Farmers are starting to realize that, maybe the returns are a little bit better on vineyards, and they're definitely less water intensive.
Tell us a bit more about that.
We typically water our vines maybe 8 to 10 gallons per week, and that's maybe 20% of what citrus would take. And so they're a much more drought tolerant plant, and kind of leaning into that, water can be scarce in some years, so it's a really good crop to grow here in Temecula. With that in mind, knowing that we do get droughts every now and again, so they're robust in the drought years as well.
In talking about the watering schedule, there's a part of the year where you might not typically water at all, right? Like when the vines go dormant during the winter?
Yeah, so we just got a little rain, and we're in the just starting the dormant season now, so water is turned off, and we won't typically, if we continue seeing some moisture in the soil, we've got moisture sensors. If we can see moisture in the soil, we won't turn the water back on until springtime. That's their chance to kind of reset. The root zone flushes, so it's kind of a good reset every year for the grapevine.
Well, that's a cool way to integrate technology into a farming business. I'm not sure very many people might think of farming as high tech, but I mean, that's a great intersection between agriculture, sustainability, and technology.
Yeah, and it's only getting more and more robust. The technology with moisture sensors, even with drones that will take overhead video of your vineyards and kind of recognize spots that are stressed and might need a little more water or maybe a little less water. So yeah, that technology side of viticulture and grape growing is getting better and better every year.
I was looking at your irrigation here. You have these emitters. Those are another aspect of being water sustainable, right?
Yeah, so they're drip emitters, and they just focus on the root zone of the vine. So we're not, sending a sprinkler through the whole vineyard and watering a bunch of dirt. We're just focused on watering the vines. It helps keep the weeds down too, because the water is centered on the rooting zone of the vine. And like I said, because they are low volume emitters, we can really dial in the amount of water that we put on the vines.
So in terms of grapes as a water efficient crop, you mentioned that the water district here for the Temecula Valley has something called a crop swap program?
Yeah, it was a program that they introduced, at least a decade ago, I think, where basically they're incentivizing growers to have less water needs, and because grapevines require much less water, they'll actually incentivize and help with the cost of transitioning, say, an avocado grove or a citrus orchard over to a vineyard, knowing that we're going to use considerably less water.
But that is to say, Temecula as an agricultural region, not necessarily just as a grape growing region, you still see a lot of different types of agricultural commodities produced here, right? Yeah,
I mean, like I said, we share the valley with a lot of citrus. As we get it into La Crusta and Duluth and the kind of the western side of our AVA, we share the land with a lot of avocado and some pretty cool like flower farms as well. So
kind of gives you a unique Southern California Sonoma style farm to table experience.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of really cool organic growers out here too that we can work with. We're fortunate in that we have such a breadth of fruit and vegetables that grow in this area that we can really kind of source locally and showcase.
That's awesome. Dinner in the vineyard, remember that one. Now tell us a bit more about the space you're in.
So this is our barrel room. It's kind of reserved for our club members, so it's kind of a fun area for our club members to come and enjoy club exclusive wines that we can pour back here for them.
The design on it's really cool. It has a great atmosphere. Could you tell us about this racking system we're looking at?
Yeah, so they call it a honeycomb rack. We're the first winery in the country to import them. Manufactured in Spain. Kind of the cool thing about them is each barrel is on a caster system where you can roll the barrel out, access the barrel, push it back in. So a traditional system, if we needed to get to this barrel, we'd have to forklift everything down, work with the barrel, put everything back. With this, we can plug the barrel into one of these bays, and it basically lives there its entire life. So it's a pretty fun system to work with, and it's visibly, it looks pretty cool too. So
Absolutely. Tell us a bit about the barrels you work with.
Yeah, so we buy a good amount of new oak every year for Wiens. We kind of range between French and American oak. So these are some of our French oak barrels that we're trialing. This would be a medium plus toast barrel. This is a heavy toast barrel. And so this is our Reserve Cabernet, kind of one of our flagship wines that we have here.
And what are the differences in the flavors of wine that you get from the different toast profiles?
So a medium toast barrel, you're thinking the barrel is toasted over an open fire, and you're extracting vanillins, you're getting some caramelization of the natural sugars in the oak. A lighter toast profile might give you a nutty character, a little bit of vanilla, some macadamia maybe. A medium toast, we're getting into some caramel character, you know, a little bit of that kind of toasty edge. And then as we get into heavy toasts, we're getting into kind of more chocolate, coffee character that you can get from the barrel itself. So it kind of adds a different element to the wine, which is pretty fun.
And then the other markings you see here up on top, those are cooperages, right?
Yeah, so Sylvan is the cooperage that we're working with here. We work with about 8 different coopers. So quite a few different cooperages, a lot of toast profiles within those cooperages. We do quarterly blind tastings, the winemaking team, and just making sure that we're matching the right cooperage, the right toast level with the right wine, you know, and that it ages out like we expect it to. And we've been doing that now for 15 years and really kind of dialing in what barrel we like with what wine. So.
This racking system, in addition to being visually appealing, is very practical. You were saying that this enables you to get certain flavors out of the wine, in fact. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so there's a process of aging wine called sur lees or on the lees. And the lees are basically the yeast cells and the sediment that typically would precipitate out in a wine after fermentation. With this racking system, you can spin the barrels to stir the lees, and that lee stirring will get those sediment back into solution. And if you stir it, you know, weekly for 2 or 3 months, you'll actually end up building some mouthfeel or some body in the mid palate of the wine. For our white wines, especially our Chardonnay and our Reserve Fumé Blanc, we're getting some biscuity character from the yeast, which is kind of fun. Some maybe cracker, toasted cracker, biscuit flavor.
So we're sitting here today with some of Wiens Cellars' award-winning bottles.
Like I mentioned earlier, my dad was our founding winemaker. I came into the program about 15 years ago, right with another gentleman named Brian Marquez. He was the assistant winemaker for many years, and then about 3 or 4 years ago, I was promoted to director of winemaking, and he was promoted to the winemaking position. So he's our head winemaker now, and I want to give him the credit that he deserves, making these amazing award-winning wines. So. Our Grand Rouge got, I believe, 96, 97 points for the Toast of the Coast competition.
Wow.
It was best in class for red wine, which was a great award. And then kind of one of the other things I wanted to showcase was our Vineyard Designate series. Because we work with so many cool little kind of microclimates in the valley here, we found, this is probably a decade ago or more now, but we found that it's kind of fun to showcase vineyard designates from these specific locations. So we'll put the vineyard name up here. This happens to be a Bordeaux blend, but we do a lot of cab vineyard designates. We have a Sangiovese from our Sage Vineyard right now that's crushing it in the tasting room. So
to speak.
yeah. So it's kind of fun to showcase these little kind of vineyard sites that we work with in the valley.
So maybe you can walk us through the process of making wine from the point that grapes arrive through that gate.
Yeah, so we on average harvest and process about 250 tons per vintage.
So 500,000 pounds of grapes in a year?
Yeah, that's
a lot.
We've done as much as 580 tons.
Wow.
That was our record year.
Now, how many bottles of wine can that make then?
1 ton is about 160 gallons.
Okay.
Which is about a little less than 3 barrels. A barrel will hold about 300 bottles of wine. So right now we're averaging about 15,000 cases per vintage. So basically the fruit will arrive in half-ton macro bins. These big bins, we'll weigh the bins. And then if it's white grapes, they'll go directly into the press. We press off the juice and then we'll ferment just the juice. If it's a red, we're gonna weigh the fruit and then it's gonna go into one of these hoppers, which will feed down into this machine here. This is the distemmer. Whole berries will fall, so we don't crush, we actually ferment whole berries. Tends to give a softer tannin, which we appreciate. The stems will come out of here. It'll get pumped into one of our fermentation tanks, ferment for about a week, and then once all of the sugar is converted to alcohol, it will then go into our press. We'll press it off, and then settle it out for a month or two, rack it a few times, and then it'll go into barrel for anywhere from 12 to 24 months. Brian, our head winemaker now, is really kind of working on dialing in fermentation kinetics and temperatures and really making sure that we're getting the best expression we can out of the fruit. So, which means cooler fermentations last a little bit longer, so we're not turning and burning as much as we used to, but the wine that we're getting out of these tanks is pretty remarkable.
Oh, certainly.
We're known for full-bodied red wine, but we want to balance that body out. And you know, if you have really robust wine, the tannin can kind of get away from you. So we work to mitigate that. Tannin is that kind of astringent mouth drying effect that you get in red wine. So a couple of the ways we'll mitigate that is, again, whole berry fermentation. We do a unique process. So typically winemakers will pump over the berries and the juice as it's fermenting. You can break up skins and seeds and release more tannin that way. So we about a decade ago, we went to fully a process called pneumatage, which is a fancy French word for compressed air bubbles. So we're actually injecting compressed air to roil the tank and mix the skins back in with the juice during fermentation, and that process is a lot more gentle on the grapes.
Once it's been in the fermentation tank, how long does it tend to remain there before you take it to barrels and then to bottling?
It'll be in barrel for about a year to 2 years, and then we'll batch it back into a tank, and then it'll go through a filter and then go into bottle. It'll be in bottle for typically about a year before it's released. So right now for the red wines, we're between maybe the 21 and 23 vintage on our red wines. Okay. Our white wines we like fresh and bright, so we're working through the 24s right now, bottling the 25 vintage as we speak, and we'll get those 25 whites on the menu as soon as possible. So. Okay.
What varieties in particular are being bottled right now behind us?
I believe we're doing the Arnais and the Sauvignon Blanc this week. So a fun Italian and French whites.
So we're standing here with some really large tanks. So this is where the wine might live for some of the fermentation, right?
Yeah, these are mid-sized tanks for us. These are 1,300 gallon tanks. We have up to close to 4,000 gallon fermenters. Wow. And then some of our smaller tanks go down to about 400 gallons. But these would be either for white wine fermentation or for aging red wine. If this was a red wine tank, you would see an extra manway on the bottom, and that would be to rake out all the berries when it's done fermenting. So if you don't see that manway on the bottom, you know it's for either for white wine fermentation or for basically blending or batching a red.
So what are we tasting here today, Joe?
This is our 22 Crowded. It's a red blend that my dad started, I believe in '04 was our first vintage. It started kind of as a happy accident, you know, kind of the tail ends of all the different varieties that he was working with. He put them together. I think at that time there was maybe 6 or 7 different varieties of red wine. It turned out to be a really fun blend, and named it Crowded. Kind of the other fun thing is we're working with a local artist, Kelly Vivanco. She does a different label for us every vintage. So they always have birds on them, which is kind of fun. But, you know, so you can kind of use them as collector's items too. Every vintage is something different. So just a fun red blend. The blend changes every vintage. We keep the oak program consistent so that there's some kind of continuity vintage after vintage, but I say it's a crowd pleaser wine, one of those wines that you can bring to a party and everybody's going to enjoy.
And you get a little bit of what you're talking about. The tannins are there, they're present, but they're balanced.
Yeah.
They're not out of control.
Yeah, that's always been a big focus of us is maintaining balance in the wine.
I got some lovely, sort of red velvety flavors on this. The color's lovely. Maybe something of some cherry on the nose. It's got a really lovely fragrance.
Yeah, this is always a definitely fruit forward red. So.
How many visitors do you have here to your estate every year?
Close to probably 40 to 50,000 visitors per year. Being in proximity to LA, Orange, Riverside, San Diego, we've got a huge population base here to pull off from, and a lot of new faces every day, a lot of club members that we see pretty regularly, and it's a pretty fun business to be in.
Certainly, it sounds like it. When people come here, really wine is at the heart of what you do, whether it's the experiencing the view of your grapevines. You don't necessarily do spas or hotels or anything. Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, we're farmers first, winemakers first. There's a lot of great restaurants and spas and hotels in the valley, but we are and have always been focused on making wine, and that's always been our passion, and so that's kind of what we put our money in is our winemaking program. We've obviously have an amazing front of house team and servers, very educated on selling wine and explaining what we do to our guests. But yeah, always wine first, for sure.
Well, cheers to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.